This year's legislative session wraps up in 2 days. More on where things stand. Plus, Terry Seitz is this week's guest on Monday with the Mayor, and host Bill Potter brings us another episode of Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin with a Snovel area man facing charges after an accident over the weekend. At 1:25 on Saturday morning, Du Bois County Sheriff's deputies were called to an area along Snellville Road, east of County Road 700 East. Deputies say 19-year-old Keith Verkamp had been going westbound on Snellville Road when he crested the hill. After cresting the hill, Verkamp's truck went left of center before going off of the left side of the roadway into a ditch. The truck continued through the ditch, hitting and breaking a utility pole. His truck then flipped and came to rest facing south in the ditch. Verkamp left the scene and was found at his residence by authorities a short time later. Deputies say Verkamp broke his neck in the accident. The Sheriff's Department says Verkamp was intoxicated at the time of the crash. He is facing charges for OWI, minor consuming, and leaving the scene of an accident. A Holland man was jailed after police say he was driving under the influence of drugs with 2 young children along for the ride. Just after 10:50 yesterday morning, Du Bois County Sheriff's deputies were called about a possibly intoxicated driver on County Road 650 West near Jasper. A sheriff's deputy saw the driver go left of center several times and nearly hit another vehicle. Authorities say the driver was 36-year-old Landon Hubster and 2 children were in the vehicle with him. DCSD says they suspected that Hubster was driving under the influence of drugs or narcotics. A chemical test at Memorial Hospital found a Schedule IV controlled substance in his system. Hubster was booked into the Du Bois County Security Center and is facing charges for possession of a Schedule IV controlled substance and for operating while intoxicated. We're nearing the end of the 2015 legislative session, and there are several pieces of legislation that still need ironing out. District 48 Senator Mark Messmer says both chambers of the Indiana General Assembly have now heard all of the bills that will be considered for this session. Messmer says the remaining days of session will be about reaching compromises as needed.
If a bill passed by one chamber is then amended in the other, the first chamber must agree upon the amendments and vote again to approve those changes before the legislative process can be completed on that bill. If the first chamber does not agree to the changes, a conference committee meets to work out a version of the bill that will be satisfactory to both chambers. In a conference committee, the author of the bill normally serves as the chair. The committee is made up of conferees and advisors instead of a chair, ranking member, and additional member structure of the traditional committees.
Of course, each conference committee has senators and representatives from both parties on it. Advisors generally are senators who have had some involvement or have expertise in the bill that is being considered. Messmer says in all there are 56 Senate bills that have come back from the House for further consideration. These include Senate Bill 1, which would change the structure of the State Board of Education, along with Senate Bill 559, which addresses various criminal matters, also known as the Crime Reduction Package. The session concludes on Wednesday, and all bills must be voted on in both houses by the end of the day in order to be considered by Governor Pence. We now know this year's main stage lineup for the Ferdinand Folk Festival. Saturday evening, the Ferdinand Folk Fest Committee hosted the Halfway to Folk Fest fundraiser at the Gaslight in Huntingburg. This year's headliner will be Elizabeth Cook of Nashville, Tennessee. Other main stage performers are Georgia Brown of Bentonville, Arkansas, Nick Dittmeyer and the Sawdusters of Jeffersonville, Him for Her of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Way Down Wanderers out of Chicago, and Knoxville, Tennessee-based group the Black Cadillacs. Brown will be the youngest performer in Folk Fest history at the age of 15. Mark Stedzik is part of the Ferdinand Folk Fest Committee. He says this year's lineup is special in more ways than one.
I honestly think it's one of the best lineups we've ever had. And you know, people are going to say that are in charge of festivals all over this county and all over this region and everywhere else, but I think this is the most diverse lineup as far as styles of music. I think it's, our headliner is a female, which is awesome. We had a female the first year that we did this, but having a female lead with a band, and then also have her having the exposure of being on XM Outlaw Country radio every single day is also quite a benefit for us.
Stedzik says it's also a huge success that the festival is able to find talent from all over the country every year to perform. This year's opening act on the main stage will be the winner of the festival's first ever singer-songwriter contest that's being held. The 6th edition of the Ferdinand Folk Festival takes place on Saturday, September 19th at Ferdinand's 18th Street Park. And finally tonight, we continue to learn more about the tragic death of Indiana University senior Hannah Wilson. The 22-year-old was found dead in a rural area of Brown County about 20 miles east of Bloomington near Lake Lemon just a few hours after she was reported missing. Brown County Coroner Earl Piper says Wilson had been dead for several hours by the time her body was found. Piper says Wilson was hit in the back of the head several times by an unknown object and died from blunt force trauma to the head. 49-year-old Daniel Messel of Bloomington is facing a preliminary murder charge in the case. Now, police say Messel has a history of violent crimes. He's been arrested for battery on at least 2 other occasions, including a felony battery count in 1996, for which he served 8 years in prison. All right, coming up after the break, Terry Seitz is in next for Monday with the Mayor, and later on, sunny skies are sticking around for the foreseeable future. We're back after this.